These are the things that we're going to be expecting from you to work with us on. And I think I just turned this off. I did? Yay, it's done! Woohoo! Okay, so I will give credit to AIC for being very helpful in putting this together for us. Mine would have been a little bit more lighthearted, but you know, we didn't have time to make it too nice. I'm not going to read every little word here. This is for you. For your reference, it's in your handout. But we've got 5 requirements on annual requirements here. We've got the firm element, which you already had, annual compliance meeting, personal securities accounts, outside business activities, and annual compliance questionnaire. Is anything there out of the ordinary? Does anything seem different than what you're already doing? Nope. Now, OBAs. I think we talk about OBAs later. I'll get to that later. Office inspections. Again, as I mentioned earlier, AIC has their own examination team, and they will schedule your office inspection from their perspective. We, as the home office supervisors, have to supervise some of your activity as well. So we may pick, when you send in a seminar, we may pick a date to come out and watch your seminar. And at the same time, we'll be in the area looking at other reps, visiting. We don't have to do that every single year. But we're going to have we have to have some kind of touch or connection with you every single year, whether it's a telephone interview, an in-person interview, sit in on a client phone call interview, various things that we're going to be able to do just to make sure that we've checked the box, that we're supervising what's going on. They're going to usually announce their inspections, and the frequency will be based on what kind of business you're doing, if you have any complaints, if you're a high-risk rep, if you're on a financial watch for whatever reason, they're going to look at you more often. Some will be conducted unannounced. Of course, you won't know they're coming, but they'll show up. And if they show up, just give us a call. Hey, they're here, and we'll help you out through the entire process. And as always, if a regulator ever came to your office, that's still going to hold true. Call AIC immediately and call us at the same time. Well, you know, one phone, one ear, but let both of us know immediately that you have a regulator in your office. And put them in the hottest room in your office and make them miserable and don't give them water and tie them to the chair. And unless you've gone home for the day, or unless you've shut that office and you're not operating out of it anymore. Branch files, again, no biggie here. This is all the same stuff that you were required to have before. You won't have to have client paper files if there is no paper. If it's all electronic, you won't have to have those. Outgoing correspondence, incoming correspondence, complaint file, even if they're empty, just like now, you have to have these same files. Gifts and gratuities, do not call, business card letterhead file, exception reports. Actually, the exception reports are what we're going to be working at the home office, so you don't have to worry about those. Signature guarantee, we'll talk about under separate cover. Yeah, I'm just going to skip right over that right now. If you have non-registered fingerprinted persons in your office, you need to have a file on them as well. And if you are an IAR, you have IAR client files and the personal securities files, including the QPTRF and the AHF file. WTF? Quarterly personal transactions reporting form and annual holdings form. Annual holdings form. That is so that you can look at and compare that what you're holding and what you're trading is not in conflict with what you're recommending your clients to hold and trade. Outside business activities. If you have an outside business activity now that's listed on your U4, that will come over when we do the mass transfer on the U4. However, they have to go into their Reg Ed system called OBARCS, and that's the Outside Business Activity Reporting System. So once we get on, you will have instructions come to you. Again, it's not something that has to be done immediately because it's already disclosed, but you'll need to go in and you need to fill out this OBA form online. Once you get it in there and it goes through their approval process, it's in there, and you just have to recertify it each year. You don't have to re-enter it each year, you just have to recertify it each year. You use the same tool to report new ones, and you use the same tool to cancel any that you're no longer participating in. All right, FINRA reportable activities. There are a lot of things that people don't think are reportable. And I, along with every other compliance-related goober in the world, would much rather you call me and say, hey, I think I have something to disclose, and let us make that determination for you. Because if you don't, there's not only risk of regulatory scrutiny, but there's a fine that goes with it. When we do finally find out about it and we report it late, there's fees that are associated with it, and those are fees that are charged by FINRA, not fees charged by us. So complaints, arbitrations, litigations, those are usually going to be reported by us anyway. This includes insurance, civil, personal, banking, real estate, or any personal business activities. If you have anything going on in the court system related to that, you got to at least give us a call and let us look at it. And I've gotten a few calls about it, and they were not reportable. And I said, thank you very much for letting me know. At least we're not blind on this if it comes up later. Criminal activity, don't have to say anything much about that. Financial issues, if you're doing a compromise with creditors, if you're filing bankruptcy, anything related to the financial disclosure questions on the U4, you need to let us know about those. Regulatory actions, usually we're going to be the ones reporting those. And if you're terminated, we'll be filing that report as well. Here are a few financial issues: liens, judgments, bankruptcies, mortgage, short sale, compromise with creditors, including retail credit cards. Reportable criminal activities, big inclusive list here. Big ones are felonies and misdemeanors related to the following. Not all misdemeanors. You have 30 days to report these activities. If you report it after 30 days, the initial late filing fee is $110, and then it's a certain fee per day. I don't remember what the breakdown is per day, but it goes up to a maximum of $1,575. So if it happened 2 years ago and you just say, oh crap, I forgot to report that, and now you report it, you're probably going to end up paying about $1,600 to do that. And if you don't report it and you get caught not reporting it, that's going to be even worse. Complaints. Do your clients complain about anything? Anything at all? I don't like the way this statement looks. Why did my mutual fund value go down? There's a line between when you get to decide what's a complaint and when you need to let us to decide what's a complaint. We're here to help with those answers, so is AIC. We're kind of your first line of defense if you want to call us and talk through things. If we can't make a determination, we'll call AIC or we'll get a three-way call going. But y'all have been, I will say, at the time that I've been here, y'all have been very good about calling us and asking us about particular client issues. So continue doing that and let us get ahead of those before they turn into something big. If the client asks you for copies of information, if they ask you for copies of statements, things like that, do everything you can to facilitate that. But if it starts getting into the pushing of, why did you do this, why did you not do that, I'm missing this, I don't have this, I don't agree with that, that's when you might want to call one of us in to help with the situation. And now we're going to let Jacob talk about communications with the public.
So communications with the public, everyone is pretty familiar with the process that we've had at CCF Investments. Any retail communication in the past, you've always emailed to me for a turnaround approval or comments on those retail communications. The biggest difference that you're going to see with AIC is the submission process, which Brian touched on earlier. You'll no longer be emailing me or emailing anybody at AIC. It'll all be submitted through RegEd's AdTracks program. The AdTracks program is pretty cool. I've seen a little bit of it. It'll give you a status report, so you have peace of mind that it has been submitted through and it's under review, and then it'll also tell you when it's been approved. Lots of different communication with the public avenues. Most of them that we have allowed for in the past, AIC allows for as well. One thing I did want to point out here is that they do not allow texting. I wanted to hit on a few communication preparation tips as you guys are putting together your seminars and your flyers and stuff like that. Use of superlative words. If you guys have submitted anything to me recently, this has become a bigger issue for me because I've sat with the guys in the compliance department at AIC and I'm trying to bring everybody up to speed on what they can expect when we make the transition. So be wary of using terminology like we have the perfect products for you, or we have the best products, things like that. There may be situations where some of these terms are permissible, like guarantees when you're talking about annuities with a proper disclosure. Statistics, if you guys are I know we use a lot of statistics, especially in PowerPoints. At AIC, these statistics can be no older than 2 years old. Okay, so you'll probably have to be doing some updates to your slides for the submission at AIC. Avoiding use of inappropriate graphics such as money bags, pot of gold with gold coins spilling out and stuff like that. Those are all very problematic in the eyes of FINRA as it implies a certain result. Okay, it can be considered promissory. Any materials provided from a third party, make sure that you have permission to use them before proceeding, and you may be asked to show that you've actually got the permission to use them. Communication review timelines. You know, I've always tried to be very flexible with you guys on short notice. If you have something come up, you know, that you just learned about, I always try to push it through for you. Just keep in mind that these guys will now have 1,200 people to service, so these are probably pretty strict timelines. I wouldn't expect any 24-hour turnarounds or same-day turnarounds on most advertising submissions. Communication types that are permitted and not permitted, you guys can read those there. Pretty much the same thing that you've always experienced at CCF Investments. And we'll talk a little bit more about social media in a minute. Consolidated reports. Everybody knows that MoneyTrack, during our last FINRA examination, or actually the one prior to our most recent one, they deemed MoneyTrack a consolidated statement or report. And AIC actually has a couple of vendors where you can create these consolidated reports, Allbridge and eMoney, as well as Streetscape. And correct me if I'm wrong, Streetscape is something that's available to everyone at AIC.
Right, and
right?
just so everyone knows, Streetscape equals Wealthscape. They changed their name
Oh, okay.
in January, so that's the same, they're the same thing.
Okay. Now, the one big difference here is that these consolidated reports, even if they're from a pre-approved vendor, they do have to be submitted on your outgoing correspondence log, which we'll talk about in a minute. If you want to create, well, before I get to that, if you put any manual entries in these programs, just like MoneyTrack, when you were putting in information from funds held outside of CCF Investments or the companies that we have agreements with, you had to provide supporting documentation for those entries. These are client statements. Usually the same standard applies here. AIC, this is something that's a little different. We have really discouraged in the past you guys creating your own consolidated statements. AIC does allow for that. You know, if you want to create one in Excel or something like that, it does require pre-approval though. So, you know, you put it in there, give them your supporting documentation and submit it through AdTracks prior to sharing it with the client. Okay, electronic communications, as we discussed, you guys have to use the AIC approved email addresses. This is not a big change, again, from CCF Investments. One of the good things that we did hear about earlier is that there is the availability to brand an alias for your email addresses. So Darla can have Darla Prosperity Financial or whatever her DBA is for marketing purposes. It'll all come to your standard AIC email address and it'll be captured in the SMARSH archiving system. So again, personal email addresses, Gmail accounts, Hotmail, etc., are not approved for use for clients. It's something that we've always taken seriously, and if you guys look at this bold stuff here, it's something that AIC takes very seriously as well. During our conversations with the compliance team, one of the guys mentioned that when they see the use of personal email addresses during their examinations in the field, when they come out to visit your office, they will expect to be able to look through those personal email addresses, okay? Which is not something that I've done during my examinations of you guys before, but just expect that if any personal email addresses pop up. And again, no texting. Social media, they allow for Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. AIC currently does not support YouTube. However, I know we have a few YouTube users in here. Ron, I'm looking at you and a couple other guys here. What you can do is you can actually embed your videos directly on your website or on your social media page or something like that. You just can't have that standalone YouTube page or channel. Okay, so there are ways to kind of work with that. You will have to do the training at Reg Ed. They have a, everyone here is familiar with Reg Ed. That's where we've been doing our firm element. They have a dedicated social media training course that you'll be required to do if you wish to use social media at AIC. The submission process is pretty similar with the exception that you won't be emailing me links to your sites. You'll actually be submitting them through ad tracks. And then, of course, you'll be setting up the archiving and monitoring at SMARSH. Okay, so the outgoing and incoming correspondence logs, this is going to be a little different than what you've experienced at CCF Investments. Previously, outgoing correspondence, we're not talking emails here, we're talking letters to clients and things like that, were maintained in your outgoing correspondence folder, and then we would review those during your inspections from the compliance staff at CCF. The difference here is that whenever you have a communication going out that is non-solicitory, so administrative in nature, and I'm thinking things like Christmas cards, birthday cards, things like that, you put them on your outgoing correspondence log, and then you actually have to send them to the supervising principal, which is going to be either me, Brian, Chris, or Bill, for review on a monthly basis. Incoming correspondence log, the same thing. It'll be submitted on a monthly basis. This is basically letters that you receive in the mail from your clients. Again, not email, anything like that. It's also a checks received blotter. So if a client sends in a check, that'll be included as well. Again, that's a monthly submission. And something to note here, where am I? Checks received. If you receive a check and you don't submit it to the fund company or wherever you're funding by noon the next business day, you'll need to note date the reason why on your incoming correspondence log when you submit it.
All right, index annuity transaction blotter. These do go through AIC. Same thing as the correspondence logs. If you have no sales of those, you don't have to submit a blank one saying you have no sales. Otherwise, if you are selling them, you need to put them on the blotter and send them to your supervising principal. And from now forward, when you hear the words supervising principal, it's going to be one of the four people I talked about earlier. Me, Jacob, Bill, Harp. I got it right that time, Bill Harp, and Chris Teofil. And you will know who yours is. We're going to communicate that all out to everybody individually so that you know who your supervising principal is. Disciplinary actions. I can fault CCFI for not having a very structured disciplinary action process in place. We have some letters of caution, some letters of education. It was just kind of loose. AIC's is very structured, and not necessarily saying that that you have to violate level 1 to get to level 2 to get to level 3 and then get terminated. You can go straight from 1 to termination. But at least they do have some lines and some columns of if this happens, then it's considered a level 1 and it comes with a warning. If this happens, it's a level 2 and it's a letter of education and a training that goes with it. We will be sending this out as well so that you have an idea of what not to do. But just like Jim Carrey said in Liar, Liar, stop breaking the law! Because this client kept calling him and saying, hey, I got to get off again. Stop breaking the law. I think 99.9% of y'all do the right thing every day and that you would never purposefully do anything wrong. But again, they do have this very structured disciplinary actions in place. And that's one of our functions, is that we have to work with them to make sure and get those delivered to you guys and properly reported if need to be reporting. For IARs, you have extra reporting requirements. You have to have a code of ethics annually certified, which we have now, but you'll have to do that with them again. And the annual holdings form, the AHF that we spoke about earlier. And here's how, where they spell out the QPTRF. Y'all got to work on that. That's just crazy. The quarterly personal securities transaction form. You will be prompted when you need to fill these out. That will be sent to you electronically for you to fill out and submit. It's not something you have to remember to do. But remember, if you are doing a personal securities transaction or a private securities transaction outside of a brokerage account, then you would need to request permission for that just like you do now. Any political contributions, got to be sure we have to, or AIC has to disclose those appropriately since they are SEC and MSRB registered. So any political contributions that you make, you have to report as well if you are an IAR. So they have a way to report that as well. And that is it for compliance talk that we have. There will be more compliance information, more compliance meetings later. They will be webinars, they will be in person, wherever. But that's the high points of what we wanted to cover with y'all today.